They tied her in the desert like an animal, left her broken, bleeding, marked with scars that would never fade. But just as the vultures circled, a stranger rode in, a rancher with a scar of his own. And when he cut her free, what he did next would start a war. And out here in the Wild West, wars weren't fought with armies. They were fought with love, blood, and the crack of gunfire. The desert was cruel that evening, its wind tasting of rust and old bones. Sand hissed across the gulch, and vultures circled low as though invited to a feast. Bound to a weather-worn post was Isabel Reyes, her body marked by burns and welts that gleamed faint under the sinking sun. They hadn't only meant to kill her. They wanted her to remember. Each scar was a brand of torment, left as proof that she belonged to no one but their cruelty. Jonah Carver reined in his horse at the edge of the gulch. Dust clung to his boots and hat, his face shadowed but steady. 35 years of wrangling. Cattle and facing men with guns had hardened him, yet what he saw now made his chest clench. A woman left like carrion, skin torn, lips cracked, eyes closed. The West was merciless, but this was a new shade of savagery. He swung down, spurs biting the earth, and cut through the bindings with a swift flick of his knife. Isabel collapsed. Against him, her breath shallow, her weight light as bone. For a heartbeat, Jonah thought she had already crossed to the other side. Then her lips moved. "Please, don't touch my scars." The words were raw, fragile, not anger, not shame, a plea born of terror. Jonah froze, his hand suspended above her shoulder. Her voice trembled again. "If you do, they'll come. They always do." A chill cut through him colder than the wind. His gaze snapped to the ridgeline. There, a flicker, a rider's silhouette against the crimson sky, and perhaps another, friend or foe, salvation or a crueler fate. Jonah didn't wait to find out. He lifted Isabel into the saddle, swung up behind, and pressed his heels hard into the mare's flanks. The gulch thundered with hooves, a desperate rhythm of flight. Behind them, the vultures dropped lower, wings slicing the air. And on the ridge, 3 riders turned to follow. The ride to Hollow Creek was a blur of shadows and grit. Isabel swayed against Jonah's chest, her breath rattling like paper in the wind. He kept the mare at a relentless pace, each hoofbeat a vow that she would not be left behind again. Yet, the image of riders on the ridge gnawed at him, silent silhouettes etched against the storm-lit sky. By the time lantern light flickered from his cabin porch, night had already swallowed the canyon. Jonah slid down, cradled her carefully in his arms, and carried her inside. The cabin smelled of leather, smoke, and black coffee left too long on the stove. He laid her on the cot by the hearth, the fire's glow softening her bruised face. Her eyes fluttered open. "Why, help me?" Jonah crouched beside her, setting his hat aside. Because no one else did. He poured cool water into a tin cup and offered it. Isabel's hands shook as she drank, her gaze never leaving him. There was a question buried in her stare. Did he see her as a woman, or only the scars that marred her skin? Jonah let silence speak for him, his steady presence louder than words. Outside, the coyotes howled. Then another sound slid beneath their cries, the faint grind of hooves on rock. Jonah stiffened. He stepped to the shuttered window. Moonlight revealed tracks weaving fresh across the ridge. They hadn't shaken the riders. He shut the window, stoked the fire higher, and checked the revolver on his hip. The weight felt heavier tonight, not from iron, but from the knowledge that someone had marked Isabel like prey. She whispered, her voice nearly lost to the crackle of the fire. "Safe doesn't last. They'll come. They always come." Jonah looked at her, steady as stone. Then let 'em come. But deep down, he knew, by carrying her out of that gulch, he had drawn a line in the sand, and men were already riding to erase it. Dawn broke gray and restless over Hollow Creek. Isabel sat wrapped in a wool blanket, staring at the embers in Jonah's hearth. She had slept in fragments, each one shattered by screams from a past that refused to die. Jonah moved quietly about the cabin, his boots whispering across the planks. He set a skillet on the stove, the smell of bacon and bread filling the air like a small promise of normalcy. "Eat," he said, voice even, handing her a tin plate. She obeyed slowly, breaking bread into tiny pieces, chewing with wary eyes fixed on him. He noticed how she flinched at the crackle of the fire, as though even warmth carried danger. Jonah didn't press. He had seen men broken by war, by drink, by loneliness. Healing wasn't coaxed with words. It was earned by patience. By midday, he was outside mending the corral fence. Isabel lingered at the doorway, blanket still clutched to her shoulders. Jonah swung the hammer in a steady rhythm, sweat beading on his brow, rain clouds brewing on the horizon. The sound of iron against wood was oddly soothing, and she felt something loosen inside her, a fragile thread of trust. The storm rolled in fierce. Lightning split the sky. Thunder rattled the earth. Isabel shrank from each rumble, heart racing as memories clawed back. Jonah came inside, dripping rain, hat low over his eyes. "They won't cross the river in this storm," he said, pulling the shutters tight. "Buys us time." Her sleeve slipped back, revealing scars etched deep along her arm. She yanked the blanket higher, shame burning her cheeks. "Ugly truths don't wash away," she whispered. Jonah crouched before her, his eyes steady as the storm outside. "A scar just means you survived. That's all I see." For the first time, Isabel didn't recoil when his hand brushed a damp strand of hair from her face. The silence that followed was heavy, but not hollow. The shutters rattled. Again, harder. Jonah's voice dropped low, like a warning carried by the storm. Even as he spoke, the faint drum of hoofbeats slipped through the thunder. Out here in the West, every choice carries a price. And if this story has gripped you, stay close, because the next twist may cost us everything. The storm hammered Hollow Creek like a war drum. Rain lashed the shutters, lightning split the canyon sky, and still Jonah heard it, the measured beat of hooves threading through the thunder. He snatched his rifle from the rack, worked the lever, with a hard clack, and glanced back at Isabel. She sat rigid by the fire, her fingers white on the blanket's edge. "Stay down," he ordered. Through the slats, 3 riders emerged from the rain, their slickers glistening, carbines strapped. Across their saddles, they moved with the patience of wolves, circling, waiting for the moment to strike. Jonah knew the type. Hired men, ruthless enough to hunt through storm and night. The first shot shattered the shutter, wood splinters stinging Isabel's cheek. She ducked with a gasp. Jonah fired back, muzzle flash cutting through the gloom. One rider reeled and fell, horse screaming as it bolted. But the others pressed harder, splitting apart to flank the corral. Isabel's breath came fast. "You don't understand. They won't stop. Not until they drag me back." Jonah kept his rifle trained, voice low and unshaken. "Then they'll have to climb over my grave first." Gunfire roared, bullets chewing through the walls. Jonah grabbed Isabel's wrist, pulling her toward the back door. They burst into the storm, rain slicing like glass across their faces. The canyon lit blue with lightning, turning mud to mirrors beneath their boots. But the riders were cunning. 2 shapes loomed ahead, blocking the canyon gate, rifles raised. Jonah shoved Isabel behind him, revolver now steady in his hand. Thunder cracked overhead, the air itself trembling. In that moment, the world narrowed to 3 heartbeats, hers, his, and the storm's. Friend or foe, salvation or a crueler fate. Lightning struck close, blinding white, and the canyon erupted in motion. Smoke clung to the canyon like a shroud. When the lightning's glare faded, 2 riders lay sprawled in the mud, their rifles useless in the rain. The last man, wounded but still clawing for his revolver, froze as Jonah's shadow loomed above him. One cold look from Jonah Carver made the outlaw's hand falter. He kicked the weapon away, leaving the man broken in the muck. The storm drifted on, rain easing to a steady patter. Jonah holstered his revolver and turned to Isabel. She stood barefoot in the mud, hair plastered to her face, chest rising and falling like she had outrun death itself. For the first time, her eyes didn't hold fear. They held wonder. "You didn't have to," she began, voice trembling. "I did," Jonah cut in, steady as stone. "No one deserves chains. Not you. Not ever." Silence fell, save for the dripping of water from the rocks. Isabel looked down at her arms. Scars mapped her skin, cruel stories carved by men she'd never forget. She lifted her sleeve, exposing them to him fully, as if daring him to flinch, but Jonah didn't. Instead, he stepped close, rough hands cupping her face with care that belied their strength. His lips brushed each scar in turn, forearm, shoulder, the jagged welt across her collarbone. She trembled, whispering, "Please, don't touch my scars." But he did, softly, reverently, as though sealing them shut forever. "Then let me kiss them instead," he murmured. The weight of years fell away in that moment. For Isabel, the scars no longer sang of chains. They sang of survival, of love found in the fiercest storm. As dawn bled gold across Hollow Creek, they returned to the cabin together. The firelight welcomed them, smoke curling like a benediction. Jonah set his rifle by the door, knowing more battles might come, but also knowing he would never face them alone. And out there, in the wide and merciless West, love was rarer than water. Yet somehow they had found it. So if Isabel's courage and Jonah's vow stirred something in you, don't let this story vanish like dust on the wind. Ride with us, like this tale, share it, and keep the bell ringing. Because in the Wild West, every scar hides a story, and every story deserves to be told.